Hot on the heels of a double battle featuring Roy that was disappointing and frustrating, we get yet another double battle with him. This one, however, is actually decent. It's a clear improvement over Roy versus Nemona. Now sure, it's still not revolutionary or groundbreaking, and it does feel shorter, but for what it is, it's certainly better. Right away, the difference is obvious in terms of animation and pacing. There's more movement, more fluidity, more moments where Pokemon actually fly, dodge, and reposition at a decent speed too. Attacks look cleaner, motion feels more natural, and there's finally some semblance of weight and impact. Kilowattrel flying and avoiding attacks is a great example. It looks and feels so much better than Decidueye doing the same thing. It was basically just dragged across the screen, making its movement feel and look stiff, robotic, and weightless. Kilowattrel instead actually feels heavy, fast, and physical. When it moves, you feel it. And the fact that Crocalor is flying alongside it makes the whole thing even cooler visually and conceptually. But what really gives this battle an edge isn't just the animation, it's the strategy. I've said this before, but when animation and choreography are inconsistent or just plain bad, good creative tactics can save a battle by making it more engaging. This battle feels like something you might see in a real competitive Pokemon battle. One where players aren't just throwing out moves, but using abilities, weather, positioning, and teamwork. Drayton's strategy with Kingdra and Archaludon is genuinely clever. Kingdra uses Rain Dance to activate its ability Swift Swim, which obviously makes it more dangerous, power up its water-type moves, which is ultimately, partially, why Crocalor gets wrecked by Wave Crash, freeze the battlefield, making it difficult for Crocalor to even stand or move properly, and allow Archaludon to use Electro Shot, its signature move, without needing to charge it up, which is how it defeats Kilowattrel. One move completely turns the tide in favor of Drayton. This is just brilliant, and he doesn't stop here. Kingdra uses Hurricane to blow the falling meteors from Draco Meteor towards Roy's Pokemon after they avoid them. This is incredibly cool and clever. I also love that Roy doesn't just roll over and give up. He adapts and smartly. He has Crocalor fly with Kilowattrel, a classic strategy of theirs that they haven't used in a while, so they can attack, avoid attacks, and move around as one, leading to one of my favorite moments in the entire battle. Both of them counter-attacking in unison using their voice attacks, Disarming Voice and Uproar. Thematically, this is just perfect since Crocalor's entire evolution line and personality are built around singing, and here, this trait becomes part of a coordinated strategy with his close friend using the best battle formation they have together. Flying together also temporarily neutralizes one of the advantages Drayton has, the icy field. Additionally, Kilowattrel uses Hurricane to activate its ability Wind Power, turning a disadvantage into an advantage, which is clever. Talk about weathering the storm. This is what a double battle is supposed to be. Teamwork, coordination, and layered tactics. This is part of what makes this battle so much better than the previous one. Lucario and the Crocalor barely felt like they were fighting together at all. Meanwhile, Decidueye and Pomet's teamwork basically amounted to Spirit Shackle holding the opponent in place so Pomet could land a big hit. In episode 116, both sides are actually working together, adapting and thinking. Now, is this an all-time great battle? No, but considering what we got in Mega Voltage and in episode 115, this is absolutely a step in the right direction. What leads to this battle in the first place is also great. It was already clear from the previous episode that Drayton had taken an interest in Roy. So when Roy says he wants him to train him, you'd expect Drayton to either accept or reject him. Instead, he does something much more Drayton. He agrees to train him, only to send Roy off to do blueberry quests to earn BP, which is a nice and fun reference to the games, especially since the things Drayton has Roy do, make sandwiches, take pictures of Pokemon wearing accessories, etc., are straight out of the games. That said, this is not nice. Roy is completely sincere. He genuinely wants to get stronger, and Drayton just uses him. He has Roy run around grinding BP for him, doing the dirty work for him, while he kicks back and relaxes. He doesn't take Roy seriously at all. It's not a great look, but at the same time, it's also extremely in character. Drayton is laid back, lazy, and opportunistic. If he gets the chance to have someone else do the heavy lifting for him while he does nothing, of course he's going to take it. This doesn't make it right, especially because Roy is so innocent, he doesn't even question Drayton or realize that he is obviously being duped, nor does he blame or get angry at Drayton once this becomes clear. But it does make it difficult to really hate him for it, especially since it doesn't feel like he has any truly malicious intent. It's more that he sees an opportunity in front of him and goes, might as well take advantage of it. Plus, he doesn't get away with it since Lacey berates him, which is also very faithful to the games. Also, speaking of Drayton being lazy, opportunistic, etc., I forgot to mention this in my review of the previous episode, but it's funny that I knew who voices Drayton before he even spoke, because Hiroyuki Yoshino has voiced so many characters that are similar to Drayton that in my mind, he's basically typecasted. Few people embody the laid-back character that only gets serious or does something when they absolutely have to, quite like him. What I really love though is what actually convinces Drayton to finally take Roy seriously. Cyrano shows up and tells Drayton that Roy once battled Hassel and that he put up a good fight and left a strong impression. Since Hassel is a friend of Drayton's grandfather Drayton, Roy immediately becomes more interesting to him. If someone close to his grandfather and that respected sees potential in Roy, then maybe there really is something there worth his time. I love that Roy doesn't need to do anything in this episode to gain the attention of Drayton. Instead, something he did in the past, a battle that already happened, that already mattered, comes back around and ends up opening a new door for him. This is something Horizons does a lot and that I always praise, and I think it works really well here. It also reinforces Drayton's lineage and place in the Pokemon world. His connection to Drayton and Hassel, both dragon specialists like him, is given weight and a purpose. So the whole thing feels nicely rooted in lore and history, which is awesome. Their battle itself ends up being narratively significant too, since Roy realizes just how far he has still to go, and it gives him a very clear motivation to keep improving, while also firmly establishing Drayton as his mentor for this arc. Especially with his whole philosophy of telling Roy to chill and not overthink things. Whether this advice actually works for Roy or not remains to be seen, but it's very on brand for Drayton. Now, speaking of teacher and student character dynamics, this episode also puts Lacey front and center as Alt's personal mentor, and honestly, this makes perfect sense since out of the whole group, Alt is very clearly the one who needs the most help, especially with the basics. If this were a class and you were handing out tutoring based on who was struggling the most, he'd be at the top of that list, and Lacey, being the responsible model student that she is, immediately picks up on this and starts focusing on him. Everyone else is actually trying to follow her training plan and improve. Alt, on the other hand, just kind of wings it, doing whatever he wants and not really learning anything. This naturally triggers Lacey's sense of responsibility. She can't just ignore someone who's clearly falling behind. So we get this really fun clash of personalities. Lacey is serious, diligent, and wants everyone to improve. Meanwhile, Alt is lazy, unmotivated, and doesn't want to be told what to do. Like, even when he realizes that she's right, he refuses to admit it and listen to her because his pride won't allow it. On top of this, he still has his aversion to women. So when Lacey gets in his face and starts pushing him to actually apply himself, he rejects her on 2 levels at once. It's a great and funny dynamic that we thankfully will get more of, since the episode ends with Lacey basically declaring that she's not going to give up on Alt, and that she's going to make him learn, clearly setting them up as the focus of the next episode, which is wonderful, since more Lacey is always good and Alt definitely needs the help. Finally, I love that Carmine returns in this episode. When she first appeared, all the way back in episode 69, I complained that she was basically just a cameo. She was only there for 1 episode, she wasn't even the focus, and then she disappeared, which really bothered me, because Carmine is great in the games and absolutely deserved more screen time. So I'm really happy that she's back, especially since it makes total sense. She does attend Blueberry Academy in the games after all. It feels like Horizons is finally going to do something more meaningful with her instead of just using her as a one-off reference. I also love that Liko and friends totally forgot about her, which leads to her trademark seething. This feels like an admission of guilt as well, even the writers recognize how minor and forgettable her appearance was. One last thing I really liked about this episode is how it quietly shows us what everyone else is doing. We get a brief scene of Liko training with Charcadet specifically, which makes perfect sense. It's her newest Pokemon, it hasn't evolved yet, and it's clearly the one that needs the most help right now. Plus, Charcadet is the one that wants to get stronger the most, so seeing it train, even if only briefly, is really nice. It shows that progress is being made in the background, which is important, because it means that when Charcadet eventually does get a big moment, whether that's an evolution or some kind of breakthrough, it won't feel like it came out of nowhere. The groundwork was laid beforehand. The same goes for Dot and Gimme Ghoul. We once again see Dot finding coins for it. Since Gimme Ghoul needs 999 coins to evolve, they can't just suddenly have it evolve one day without build-up. By consistently showing us that it's collecting coins little by little, the story is making sure that when the evolution finally happens, it feels earned rather than random. These are small details, but good long-term storytelling. Even when the episode is focused on Roy and Drayton, or Lacy and Alt, the rest of the cast is still moving forward. So overall, this episode was pretty solid. Roy vs. Drayton was a clear step up from Roy vs. Nemona. The animation, pacing, and the choreography are better, more fluid, and more vibrant. There's more teamwork, more coordination, and most importantly, more actual strategy and tactics at play, which makes the battle far more engaging to watch. I love the dynamic between Drayton and Roy and how it evolves into a proper mentor-student relationship. And the same goes for Lacy and Alt. Both pairings are set up in a way that feels natural and gives the characters room to grow going forward. Plus, since the characters in each pair are so different from each other, their interactions are inevitably hilarious to watch. Throw in the deserved return of Carmine, and you get an episode that isn't mind-blowing or unforgettable, but is a noticeable improvement over the previous one. Not just because the battle is better, but also because Horizons is finally starting to flesh out Blueberry Academy and, most importantly, its characters. It feels like things are finally moving in the right direction. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, feel free to click the links on screen. And if you'd like to support the channel and help me keep making content like this, you can find all the ways to do so in the description and in the pinned comment. Whether it's through a small donation or just watching and sharing, every bit of support means the world to me. Thank you so very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.